Yo, the have and the have-nots is back, and I am so here for this. Let's talk about this shit. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to KRS TV. This is your boy Kenny, and this is the Haves and the Have-Nots Season 7, Episode 12, and the name of this episode is A Wicked Web. I am so happy that the Have and the Have-Nots is back, because this episode was crazy. But before I get started with this review, I want to give a special shout out to my cousin, Michelle English. She actually, today, she sent me a new backdrop, which is hanging out behind me. And she also gave me a LED light, to better my production. So I definitely am very grateful for your love and support. And, special shout out to Michelle. And I am forever grateful. So let's get into this episode, y'all. Woo! This was crazy. So the episode picks up where it left off at the mid-season finale, where Derek has revealed the lion tattoo to Hannah. And you can just see, it's like the life got sucked out of Hannah. Like, she literally went back to when she was a teenager, when she was sexually assaulted. And Derek is just overwhelming with emotion, because he's just so forever, he literally regrets doing that. And he tells her that, I was 19 and I was so high and I didn't remember you. I didn't know it was you, but I know I did something like this. But that night that I raped you, I went to jail for robbing a liquor store, so I can get more drugs. And he asks her to forgive him and that he's so sorry. I mean, the man literally used to be a monster, but obviously has reformed himself. But for her to find this out after she was falling for this man, to come to find out this was the man who not only raped you, but is also the father of your daughter. It was just too much for Hannah. Hannah was just when he started to go near her, she was like, "Don't come near me." And she tells him to go. Just go now. And then next thing you know, we see that Benny comes in. And Benny's like, "What's going on?" And, every time that Derek tried to talk, he shut Derek down like, "Yo, I'm asking her, what's going on?" And pretty much she says that, "Oh, it's okay. He's about to leave. But he can definitely tell something's wrong with his mother." And then he kind of looks at Derek and was like, "She told you to leave. Okay, so I'm going to make sure that you do. So get the hell out." And then all of a sudden Derek leaves. And then he's like, "Mom, what's going on? You were just happy just a minute ago." "Oh, yeah, but once you find out, Benny, you going to hit the fucking roof." But she was like, "Look, I'm going to call the bank in the morning to get a notary so we can sign the papers." He's like, "Ma," he's like, He's like, "But what about the interest?" She's like, "I can't and I won't do it." That's the end of it. So she's dead set about giving that money back to the criers. Then we get a scene with Glenn Close and that dumbass Jeffrey. Because remember that when it left at the mid-season finale, he broke the cap on the wine bottle and was like, "You see what you made me do?" So we're seeing the aftermath of that. Jeffrey stops him and he's like, "Why do you do this, Jeffrey? Do you know how much I love you? I gave up everything for you." Still playing this guilt trip shit. And Jeffrey's just kind of going along with it. And he tells him to please put it down. So he finally puts down, the piece of glass. And then he, hugs him. And he was like, "Do you love me? Because nobody loves me. Do you love me?" And he's like, "Yes, I love you." And he was like, "Prove it." And I was like, And then he was like, and then Jeffrey was like, "How?" And he's like, "Stay with me." He says, "I don't even have any clothes." He's like, "Don't worry about that. Just stay with me for dinner. Just stay with me tonight and stay for dinner." I'm like, oh my God. And I'm just so through with Jeffrey at this point, because Jeffrey's a fucking idiot. And it's obvious you got feelings for this fool, because you wouldn't put yourself in the middle of this. After your father sent some goons to whoop his ass, you gonna go over there, to have dinner with him? Seriously? I mean, and I just knew this shit was gonna happen, that once Jeffrey got in that house, Justin was not gonna let him leave. and he realizes that he's trapped and he doesn't know what to do. But then they all start going back and forth, and pretty much he says that I do love you. Jeffrey tells Justin that, I do love you, but I think you need to talk to someone. And then Justin's like, you said that before. Yeah, but in all honesty, you both need to talk to somebody, because Jeffrey, you're a fucking moron. And Glenn Close, we knew this bitch was crazy from the moment we met her ass. So that's a given. But here it is, he's trying to say, like, we can go together, and he was like, and then Justin was like, so you mean like couples therapy? He's like, well, something like that, but you're gonna go first. And then he's like, oh, no. If we're going together. You're gonna be there with me. And he was like, are you trying to say I'm crazy? I'm like, yeah, you are crazy, Glenn Close, which is how you got your name. And then Jeffrey was like, well, I won't say you're crazy, but you are obsessed. And he's like, you made me that way. You did this to me. You know what you did. I'm like, oh my God. Oh, damn. I'm like, see, in a way it is Jeffrey's fault. I mean, hey, you gave him that black meat, and now Glenn Close is cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs out this bitch. And he don't know what to do with his damn self. So then he tells Justin that he's gonna clean up the glass, and then while he's cleaning up the glass, he gets a text from Madison saying, like, what's the address? And he gives the address 4875 Spanish Moss Trail. Yeah, he out in the burbs for real. So obviously he felt some kind of way, because he literally text that information, and then all of a sudden you see Glenn Close coming around. Who are you texting? He was like, my dad. And he's like, oh, you know how he hates me. You know what he did to me. I'm like, and you deserved it with your crazy ass. Like, but he tells Justin that he doesn't know I'm here. And then he's like, okay, fine. So let's go cook. Come on. I'm like, see, this bitch is psycho, and Jeffrey is just as crazy, because Madison told your stupid ass not to go over there, and now you up in there, and you text that damn address because you are scared, but you're trying to not show that you are. So that shit was crazy. And then we're still seeing the shrine that Justin had created with all the pictures of Jeffrey. So yeah, boo boo. So literally, Jeffrey is dancing with the devil at this point, and quite frankly, the devil can eat his ass up for all I care, because Jeffrey's a fucking moron. Over it. So then we see that Madison's at the hospital. David calls him to saying when he's going to be over, and he says he's coming over after his shift. And he asks, about Jeffrey, and he's like, I don't know anything. I don't know where Jeffrey is. But he says he'll be over after his shift is done. And then we meet a new character, one of the nurses that works with Madison. Her name is Keisha. And he starts, playing like this little game of questions with Keisha. He's like, I have a question. And then she was like, oh, I ain't changing the bedpan. The woman at 75, I ain't doing that. He's like, no. I'm not asking about that. If you had a friend who's in trouble, and if you told that friend's father, he would help him. And if you know that if you called this friend's father, he would help him. So would you do it? And she was like, well, is he an adult? And he was like, well, what does that have to do with anything? And she's like, then you just answered your own question. He grown. Let him deal with his own shit. Which I completely agree, Keisha. See, I like Keisha already, because Keisha already got a brain, and she letting it be known, like, look, don't get in the middle of that shit. And then she's saying that, and then all of a sudden he was like, well, how do you know it's a he? And she was like, please. Of course it's you, fool. You don't know no girls. And he's like, well, I've dated girls in the past. And she was like, well, it must have been a real long past. I was like, Keisha was just giving it to Madison. But then she was like, you should tell Jeffrey's father. And he's like, how do you know? And she's like, fool, you're not good at this. It's so easy to figure out. But then he said, well, it backfired the last time I told his father. Jeffrey got real angry. But then she lets him know he's a grown man. You can't make him do anything he doesn't want to do, neither can his father. But if you feel he's in danger, you should tell him. And then all of a sudden, the lady at 48 started buzzing. She's like, yeah, but you can do that after you change your bedpan. He's like, oh no, I gotta go take care of Mr. Harrington, so that's all on you, baby. I was like, damn, that was so messed up, but it was cute. Then we get a scene with Catherine and Jim. Jim is trying to call Veronica, but it goes to voicemail, and he's like, I can't reach her. And then Catherine was like, so be it. And Jim was like, you do realize that we're going to jail? And she was like, okay, we've been there before. He's like, but it seems like you're not taking this seriously. She's like, I'm not, but I'm taking a shot of vodka and I'm going upstairs. So she goes upstairs, and then Jim gets a call from Mitch. And he was like, Mr. Cryer, this is Mitch. He's like, Mitch who? Mitch Malone. He's like, oh yeah, Mama Rose's grandson. So what's the meaning of this call, Mitch Malone? Like, he kept saying his name over and over again, thinking that he may have been tapped or something like that, because he knows that people are watching him. So he's making sure that he implicates all of their asses and shit. So he's like, so yeah, Mitch Malone, what can I do for you? He's like, we got a problem. He's like, well, what's the problem, Mitch Malone? He said, it's your son. We know it was him that attacked my uncle. And right now there's a hit out on him. And he says, who put the hit out, Mama Rose? And he was like, no. He's like, well, who did it? Who put the hit out on my son, Mitch Malone? I was kind of cracking up at that, but then it just goes to show you, Jim knows has known the Malone family for years, and he knows that no hit should be carried out unless Mama Rose gave the okay. So he kind of let it be known that it's not Mama Rose who put the hit out. It was Mitch's crazy ass uncle that did that shit. And if Mama Rose find out about it, that's his ass. But he tells Jim, keep him out of sight. And he said that there were some people in jail that tried to snuff him out. But you know how my family is. They want blood. But I'll be over there and we can discuss it further. And then he kind of hangs up on Jim, and that was the end of that. And then we see Hannah is literally, it's like the life got sucked out of her after finding out that this man that she was really falling in love with actually raped her when she was a child, and he's also her baby daddy. So she calls Catherine, and she's like, Catherine's like, is everything okay? She's like, I'm not good. And then she's like, did you set me up, put me up in this nice house, got me this makeover and all of these things? Were you just pretending to be my friend all of this time? And she's like, Hannah, no, why would you say that? And she says, Derek. And she's like, well, what about Derek? Did she say? And then Hannah was like, well, did you know that he'd been in jail? And she was like, yeah. But he's worked for me for years, and he's a changed man. I thought he would have been perfect for you. And then she confesses to Catherine that he raped her years ago, and that he told her it was him, and that makes him Candace's father. And then, oh my gosh, Catherine is just taken aback, like, oh my goodness. And then, Hannah's like, this is just too much. And she's like, I'll know. But then she says that I will never forget that lion tattoo. And you do realize I never want to see him again, so don't send his ass over here no more. And she was like, oh my God, of course not. But then she asks, does Candace know? And Hannah says that Hannah tells her that Candace knows about the rape, but she doesn't know it's him. And of course, Catherine was like, I'll come over, but she's like, no, it's okay, I'm going to bed. The money will be in tomorrow, so tell Jim that, the money be in tomorrow. And she was like, I ain't telling Jim a damn thing. She's like, no, please tell him so he can leave Benny alone. So she's like, okay, fine, I will. So after they get off the phone, Catherine calls Derek. She's like, Derek, this is Catherine Harrington. Give me a call as soon as you get this. And I was like, oh, Catherine about to do some shit now. Like, yeah, Catherine now knows. So it's about to get live. So then we're at the White House dinner, and remember the Attorney General told the president about Candace, and he told her to say something to her. And we see that they're exchanging pleasantries. The first lady is all cheesing, like, "Oh my God, you're so beautiful. You're so pretty. So what do you do?" And she's like, "Well, I'm a law student." And she's like, "Oh wow, that's so awesome. So how did you two meet?" And then she says, "Well, we met at a hotel. I was in the lobby studying law, and then I saw him, and I decided to go to say hi, but he had a hat down, and um, he was kind of hiding himself, but he just said hello, so I went about my business. But then there was this guy who was trying to come on to me, and he came to my rescue, and we've been inseparable ever since." So it's like, "Oh yes, this is great." And then all of a sudden the president's like, "Okay, let's cut this short. It's been lovely. Let's we'll reconvene another time." So he shakes Charles's hand, and then he goes over to Candace. It's like, "You're a hot piece of black ass." Remember, the damn attorney general told him to say that shit. And we see that Candace she kept her cool under pressure, but we know how Candace really is. Candace would have whooped his ass. But Candace excused herself and went to the bathroom. So then we see that that Madison is now at David's house changing his bandages, and he's like, "You're late." And he was like, "My car, I'm having issues with my car, so I had to take a cab." And then I'm like, "Yeah, the car got fucked up because of Justin, aka Glenn Close." And then, he's just real temperamental with Madison, and he's like, "Okay, I'm sorry that I was late, but I'm here now." He's like, "I apologize. I'm just on edge." "Yeah, because you were just dealing with Veronica and her crazy ass. Because you saw how he lost his cool on the mid finale. He was like, 'That bitch. Oh, that bitch.'" So he's still mad at that shit, because Veronica just really can rise your blood pressure dealing with her crazy ass. And then he asks him, "Do you know where Jeffrey is?" And Madison tells him no, so he says, "Call him." So he calls, and it goes straight to voicemail. He's like, he's not answering. And he's like, "Okay, fine. Well, call him on my phone." He calls him on David's phone. We see that Jeffrey and Justin are about to have dinner. Some dry ass chicken that they smothered in Alfredo sauce. There's probably even no flavor in the shit either. I'm just saying. So pretty much, when the phone was ringing, Jeffrey's about to answer it. He's like, "Well, who is that?" He's like, "It's my father." He's like, "Don't answer it." He's like, "Look, it can be serious. He may need me." He's like, No, do not answer it. If it's serious, he'll call back. I don't want any distractions. I want it to be just me and you. Catch that. So yeah, so he's like, "This is our time, and if it's serious, he'll call back. Don't answer the phone." And then all of a sudden he was like, "Well, everything is ready. Dig in. Do you want me to feed you?" I'm like, oh my God, he is doing the most. But hey, I don't feel sorry for Jeffrey. You went over there, so hey, you over there with Glenn Close, and Glenn Close just, cooked up some rabbit with some Alfredo sauce, so you better eat that shit. And then all of a sudden, Madison tells David that he's not answering the phone, and then all of a sudden, immediately, David knows he's with that boy. He's like, "You know something?" He's like, "I don't know anything. I don't know anything." And he's like, "You're lying to me." And then he told him that, "Look, the last time I told you, Jeffrey got really upset with me." He's like, "Don't worry about that. That boy is dangerous." He's like, "I know." He's like, how would you know?" He said, "He destroyed my car." So it's like, oh, that son of a bitch. So pretty much he tells he finally confesses to David that yeah, he's with him, and he texts him the address, and that it's just crazy because he's always controlling, he's always manipulating, and he constantly puts Jeffrey on these guilt trips. So he pretty much gave the information to David as to where Jeffrey is, and he gave him the address. So David's on his way. So then we get a scene with Charles and the president. This is after the dinner, and Charles is like, "Oh, this was a great dinner." And we just see that damn president just got this mean ass look on his face. And then he's like, "Well, now that people have cleared, I mean, because they were just using all of these nice pleasantries during dinner, but now that everybody's gone, they really showed how they really feel." Because the president was like, "Well, now that everybody's gone, let me tell you this. We don't like you or her. You're an arrogant asshole who won by default, and we were planning your demise before you won." And then all of a sudden, the first lady comes in and she's like, "Oh, yes, this was lovely. But let me tell you, that girl is gutter trash." I'm like, ooh, so say how you really feel with your fake asses. Did all these pleasantries and did all of this compliments, but now y'all really showing how y'all really feel. And then I'm like, ooh, but I'm like, honey, you really don't fully know your husband, because your husband definitely got some shit with him too, which we find out later, and I'm gonna get to that. So they pretty much says that we're gonna retire now. Enjoy your 4 years. I'm like, oh, these motherfuckers are evil and they messy. So then, while Candace is in the bathroom, there's a group of people that were at the White House dinner were talking. It's like, man, this guy is gonna screw this country up. Well, at least he'll have a little tart to screw while he's in here. And Candace overheard it. So she getting the real deal of how they really feel, about us, if you know what I mean. So we see that Landon walks up to Charles and he tells Landon, like, let's get the hell out of here. And he's like, well, this is about to be your new home. He's like, it's not the place. It's the current occupants that left a foul taste in my mouth. Because when he said that shit to Charles, Charles gave this look like he wanted to whoop the president's ass. But Charles kept his cool. Because I was afraid that he was going to snap and whoop the president's ass when he talked his shit. And then finally, Candace joins them and they all leave. Then we get a scene where Veronica's on the lanai. She comes in to see that RK is sitting in her living room. And she immediately tells him, get the hell out of my house. And he's like, really? She's like, yeah, get the hell out of my house. He's like, I'm leaving. I'm almost at the door. And then she was like, wait. Do you have my jewelry? Because if you don't, you going to jail. And then he was like, I tried to get it back, but they sold it. And she was like, oh, really? So enjoy your freedom while you can, because yeah, I'm about to get that ass locked up. And he's like, look, I can work it off. I mean, look at me and you. I can make it worth your while. And then she was like, make it worth my while? Honey, you're a child. And I'm a grown-ass woman. And you're terrible in bed. I'm like, oh, so you done already let RK, get a roll in the hay with your ass. Nasty bitch. Anyway, and then RK kind of threw it back at her. He's like, well, I know I get. He's like, I know I'm good. Maybe it's you. And she's like, excuse me. And she was like, I told you to go after my son. And you failed. And then he was like, well, that's not me. And then Veronica was like, yeah, and it's not him either. And then he was like, well, she's like, shut up. Like, bitch is still in denial that you got a gay son, honey. Shoot. Jeffrey is a big queen. Like, let's be real. Like, ain't no amount of, therapy or anything is gonna change that. That boy is who he is, and she's just still in denial, And I was just like, shut up. Like, bitch, you just can't take the fact that your son's gay. Not with your crazy ass. So then she was like, okay. So she picks up the phone. Well, then first she was like, well, would you like some breakfast? And he was like, oh, no, thank you. I'm good, Miss Grits. Yeah, because y'all remember she tried to throw the pot of grits on him, giving him that good old Al Green. But anyway, then she's about to pick up the phone to call the authorities to get him locked up. And then he's like, no, don't do that. Don't do that. Let me make you feel good. And she was like, my husband's coming back. And she was like, well, fine, let him. We can give him a show. And I'm like, yeah, and the show may be that he may kill your ass, because you really don't know David, RK. You may think you hot ass, and you may think you got some hot, that you got some hot meat, but David can bury your ass. And then all of a sudden, we see him get down on his knees and everything, and then all of a sudden, she hangs up, and she's like, so you want to be taught, boy. I'm like, oh my God, Veronica, you nasty slut. But then again, RK fine, so I don't blame you, but he got down on his knees and is about to, is about to do some crunch and munch on Veronica. So we saw that. So then we get a scene with the Attorney General and the President. Pretty much he asked the President, did you tell her what I told you to say? And he was like, yeah. And you should have seen the look on her face. He's like, oh yeah, I'm about to blindside this bitch. So the President was like, oh, so she robbed you, huh? And he was like, yeah. And he was like, so you're still dealing with these whores, huh? And he said, and then the Attorney General was like, do you want to talk about what you're dealing with? He's like, okay, fine, fair is fair. So I'm like, so you cheating on your wife too? And while she walking around here with her nose in the air, calling somebody some gutter trash, obviously your husband out there, getting his stuff wet, messing around with hoes too. With your old ass. And then all of a sudden, he was like, wow, 8 years. And he was saying that, our party was ready to take him down, because he's an arrogant, snot-nosed kid and blah, blah, blah. And then, like, the funny thing about it, he's pretty clean. And then, like, the Attorney General's like, yeah, he is until now, But the thing about it, I really think he likes her. And then, like, the Attorney General's like, well, why would you say that? He's like, why would you bring a whore to the White House? He's like, and then the Attorney General's like, well, we've all done it before. But then the President was like, not before taking office. So that was indicated that, yeah, he's really feeling Candace. And he's like, I can overlook all the things that we've done, but I can't overlook what this bitch did to me. And the President was like, so wow, she has no idea who she is pissed off. And then the Attorney General was like, yeah, because I'm about to destroy this bitch and the President-elect at the same damn time. And they taking shots going back and forth. I'm like, that shit gonna backfire on your asses. Like, keep it up. Because obviously, they're playing in a new game. This is politics. And it's all about, control, manipulation, and strategy. So we gonna see how far they're gonna go with this thing. So after that, we see Candace and Charles are in the car. Benny's trying to call her, but she says she'll call him later. And then she asks, did I embarrass you at the table? He's like, no, you were great. He's like, and she tells him, I heard them talking about me. But she didn't actually tell him what the President said to her just yet. And he said that, and then, like, Charles was like, well, he said, yeah, they were talking about you, but then he told me to my face after everybody left that he wanted me to fail. And he said, so now you see why I need you here. I need somebody here to keep me sane. And then they was like, well, first of all, I didn't even like that dinner. He was like, yeah, and the food, no flavor. I was like, yep. Yeah, pretty much saying that the shit was nasty because they cooked with no seasoning. Because I'm that way too. Like, my food got to be seasoned. If it ain't seasoned, I ain't eating it. And this is not a diss on white people, because you got some white people who do know how to season, but these white people in the White House, they don't know what the fuck they doing. So we got that. So then Charles was like, well, fine, but once we get up in here, we can finally spice it up. And I was like, so he asked, like, so are you gonna stay with me? She says, yes, I'm gonna stay with you. And she's like, I'm not gonna leave you here with these fools. You need me. And then she's like, so tell me, have you ever done it in a presidential motorcade? Hmm. And then all of a sudden Charles is like, the hotel. And she was like, yeah, fine. You weren't gonna do it anyway. She's like, you really don't know what I'm capable of, do you? She's like, So they pretty much gonna go to the hotel. So then we get back to Glenn Close and Jeffrey. They eating dinner and he's like, so how do you like the food? Jeffrey's like, oh yes, the Alfredo sauce is great. Stop lying, you know that shit is nasty. And then all of a sudden you get a bang on the door. And he's like, and all of a sudden we hear that it's David. And he's like, how did he know this? How did he know you were here? How did he find this? He's like, I don't know. Like, Jeffrey, you know how the fuck you know, because you gave the address to Madison and Madison told him where you were, bitch. Stop acting funny. Then he's like, hide in the bathroom. He's like, yeah, hide. I'll get rid of him. So pretty much David's banging on the door. Justin opens the door. And he's like, David's like, where's my son? And Justin's like, he's not here. He's like, I said, where's my son? And he's like, he's not here. So he literally pushes Justin out the way and and going looking for Jeffrey. He's like, oh, okay, all right. He's like, Jeffrey. And then the next thing you know, we see that Justin goes and pulls out a gun, and he got the damn gun on fucking David, and it's like, yeah, breaking and entering. I got you now. I'm like, oh shit. As I said before, we need to kill this fool, because Justin has nothing to lose, and there is nothing that he won't do to get what he wants, and he wants Jeffrey. And he will probably kill the whole family to get his ass. I'm like, that must have been a good piece of black meat, because, as I said before, you have gone cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, Glenn Close, and you just want some more of that black chocolate, and you don't want nobody taking that chocolate away from you. Nasty whore. Anyway, that's what I have, y'all. If I missed anything, put it down in the comments. I'd love to talk to you about it. But subscribe to my channel. Click that bell so you get notifications every time I drop a video. Also follow me on all of my social platforms. I have them all listed in the description box. Also, like this video, comment on this video, and share this video. And I'll be back with the next episode of The Haves and the Have-Nots. So until next time, everybody, take care. Whew, this shit was crazy.